Why you should go green? Because you should go green. I mean, you're all in a particularly aggressive business environment. You need to do what you have to with your life and so on. So, I'm going to give you an alternative view to going green and a reason to do so. And that is because I believe that it will employ you. And that will employ you in this lifetime. There is very little employment that the industrial world is facing, and I believe that green jobs, or the people who can create green jobs, entrepreneurs, will be the leaders who will be ahead in the 21st century. Something that I will not live to see, but I'm sure a lot of you will. And so I've taken the area of habitat because I think it will interest you in this school. And it may be at a formal and informal level. There's a lot of informal construction going on in India. You must recognize that. There are ways of plugging into it also. It's not entirely possible that you as a trained professional would work for a group which might be, let's say, doing self-help building in a rural area or an urban slum area and so on. And that it can even be profitable and it can employ you. So this is the key point I'm trying to make. So I think theoretically, jobs are in a traditional sense getting to be extinct. Most of the industrial revolution has been based on trying to, let's say, eliminate jobs, right? In effect, you're already seeing the end of a large numbers of manual labor jobs that are not being done anymore. You're already seeing the end of, let's say, even slightly more specialized jobs. You already have this whole business of will chauffeurs and drivers become extinct in another 10 years? Will various kinds of household services become extinct and so on? You're already seeing a lot of security services jobs, for example, evaporating. And this happens because in the industrial society, in a monetized neoliberal world in which we more or less live, businesses will tend to draw down natural wealth because natural wealth is free, and if it's free, it's something that's worth using and not repaying back and not replenishing and simply exploiting in order to create a lower and lower cost product. And also automation, which is a big area of business today, may make human labor unaffordable, meaning if automation becomes lower cost than the wage rate of human workers, then obviously automation is simply going to create lower cost products, and that will be affordable. But that means that, hey, we have a little bit of a conundrum here. Do we live in a world of consumers or producers or both? And this is really the question we have to ask ourselves. So, I believe that we do define ourselves by the work we do. It's not just jobs, but by the employment that we do or what specialization we bring to the world of work. And so these jobs will be a very compelling reason for this whole outcome not to happen. Because human labor is a natural resource which cannot really be considered free anymore. It's going to simply be necessary to have human labor as a requirement of business to create wealth, to create a direction and leadership in the creation of wealth. And therefore jobs will never really vanish. It's not logical, I think, that businesses can imagine a world full of consumers who are all jobless. It's an odd kind of world, at least could come about. In fact, Buckminster Fuller wrote about this in the 1960s. He imagined a world of consumers who actually didn't do any work, and he considered that a utopia because he said, well, all you need to do is to have enough natural resources exploited at a rate which is sufficient to produce goods and services which can be distributed in any arbitrary method, so that you don't really have to work to produce anything, but you get the benefit of living in a modern society. But at least today's businesses, I don't think are going that way, and I believe that at least for a long time, I'm not expecting that the businesses are going to imagine a world full of consumers who are otherwise jobless. And though this is not necessarily the short-term agenda of businesses, creating sustainable livelihoods is an important economic agenda which will not allow the erosion of our natural capital for a long time. Businesses don't think that way. They think they're just operating in a space where they're either surviving or doing better than last year or making some goods and services that can get sold. But the larger wheel of development goes in a way that I believe would not allow natural capital to erode, because natural capital will not be free anymore if it starts becoming scarce. It has simply been seen as too abundant. The million species that Dr. Jain talked about, probably a lot of us in our cynical moments will say, okay, how does it matter to me? Actually it does. You need to talk to an ecologist to understand how it matters to you. And that's not the topic of my discussion today. So I will leave it at that. And so, come to three primary points. One is that jobs will tend to drive the world towards a greener economy. Green jobs will not become extinct. Other jobs, brown jobs, if I can call them that, might become extinct. The second is that the global south, which is where we live in, faces great challenges and offers real opportunities with its emerging markets and labor force, and which is rapidly becoming educated. So this really applies to India and to the fact that we are getting rapidly educated. The education affords us the ability to see that our wage rates rise, our productivity rises. But for businesses, it means that you need to employ fewer and fewer of you in order to keep remaining competitive. And that is a big conundrum which the employment economists have been debating now for the last 10 or 15 years, and which is going to become a big issue in the coming years. Are all of us going to become at least part-time Uber drivers? Probably. Are all of us going to be part-time employed in 20 different things that we do in a week? In all likelihood. But how do we continue to maintain a certain wage rate at a level of productivity and education and training, especially in the global south? You could argue that in the global north, they still have reserves of sufficient exploitable reserves and therefore can continue for a while. But definitely in the global south, in China and in India, we are forever facing environmental limits, partly due to population, but partly due to a certain kind of natural resources, which even though in tropical nations are larger per acre than in cold countries, are nevertheless per capita are lower. And the third point is that for India, it would be probably better to achieve sustainable development of emerging sectors driven by internal demand, like habitat, which is a very basic demand, rather than fossil-based industries which are sunset industries. So rather than going for industries which are heavily oil dependent or are heavily fossil fuel dependent, I believe that we need to push habitat, which will probably remain a basic demand for forever. People will need to live in some kind of a cave shelter or something. So we need to drive the agenda of sustainable development through such basic fields rather than necessarily look for derivative fields such as IT, marketing and so on, which are actually just partial fields. Because finally the basic goods that we are talking about is roti, kapra and makan. So, so the habitat, the food industry as well as apparel are the three core sectors which we need to look at, and we need to drive the way we think about it and sustainable development in India through, in our case, in this gathering that we are sitting here, through habitat. So what are these green jobs? And I want to just give you some examples of these and then leave. So here is a person on the right hand side of this slide who is in a very green way commuting a large number of people to wherever they need to go. So is this green commuting? You know, I mean, how do the themes of poverty and green jobs intersect? And this is a very important thing to think about. I'm not going to try and give you any answers. These are conundrums, because basically this person seems to be doing a good green job, job, he is commuting a lot of people. There's zero emissions. He's using a cycle rickshaw, right? No oil, no fossil fuel involved in this whole business. And he's transporting whatever, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people there to wherever they need to go. The person on the left, the one driving that bus, you can't see in the picture, is also transporting a large number of people to wherever they want to go. So many, in fact, that they are now outside the bus and as well as inside the bus. I hope that bus doesn't topple over. But what is the solution to an overloaded public transport system? Cars and roads was the feeling in 50s and 60s and 70s as a way to simultaneously get out of poverty, get developed, and also create a wealth of resources, much on the Western model, where, for example, in a typical European household today, you will get 1.6 cars. So, a family of 4 with 1.5 cars, more than 1.5 cars today. And it's even more in the US. But clearly, if we take that model, then we have to understand that we are not really creating jobs, we are creating automation by seeding that demand for commuting to not really use that opportunity to create jobs. You're simply using it to create machines which can be sold as capital white goods to various families and users. So these are things to think about. There are 3 categories of green jobs that I can identify. The first one I call direct jobs. These are extensions of old jobs, not very green. They are extensions of jobs in the brown economy, but for greener products. So for example, here is a rainfall harvesting tank, a very large one of 100 acres being made in Bali. And these jobs are obviously greener versions of what would be a similar infrastructure project in the brown economy. A little better than that would be this 100 megawatt plant in the middle of the Rajasthan desert, which creates about 1,000 jobs. These are jobs essentially which are going to be phased out because they're basically meant to be cleaning collectors, and slightly better ones are to maintain the ones that are faulty, and also slightly better are the ones that grow plants in the shadow of these collectors. So there's agricultural jobs there, there's plain cleaning jobs and maintenance jobs, and there is repair and technician jobs for electricians. Today there are 1,000 of them, so that's a lot of green jobs. But this is going to become as little as 100 quite soon. Because now, as the wage rates rise, it is those 1,000 jobs and their cost that start determining the price of electricity from these solar power plants. It's driving it even more than the capital cost of those photovoltaic cells. So that is something to be thought about. That while today you get 10 jobs per megawatt in solar power generation, it is quickly coming down to 1. Then there's another thought about direct jobs that one has to think about. This picture on the left is from Kashipur, where Greenpeace activists are protesting against the manufacture of GLS bulbs. So they've been reasonably successful, and instead CFLs and now recently LEDs have become mainstream in terms of lighting. So this produces lowered emissions in households, right? Well, it's not so easy. So the 2 pictures on the right are from Anand Parvat in Delhi, where you see CFLs being manufactured. Mercury is being handled with bare hands without gloves, and soldering, etc. is all being done while sitting on the floor, packing, making of CFLs, etc. so on. So when we talk about an inequitatious society, it's very difficult to simply say, oh, we used to use bulbs, now we use CFLs, so we are better off. Until you look at the whole product cycle, you're not going to get the whole story. And again, I leave this as a question with no answer, that such kind of direct jobs which simply result because some GLS workers lose their jobs in Kashipur, some CFL workers gain jobs in Anand Parvat, probably more people get jobs in CFL manufacturing than GLS, simply because it's less automated. The moment it becomes more automated, the numbers will come down again. Another kind of a direct job is is that here are these IT professionals going to work in a BPO building, somewhere where I live in Gurgaon. And instead of going into a brown building, they're going into a green building. Is this a green job? Nothing has changed as far as they're concerned. But yes, it's true that the emissions that they without unknowingly created by being in a different environment are now lowered. How much lowered? Can't say, but not too much, 20%, 30%, 40%, but something of that order. So this is also a kind of direct green job, that you simply do whatever you were doing earlier, but still start working in a greener office. However, if you're going to be working in a tobacco or an oil company, and there are a large number of jobs in such companies, let me tell you, then you have to question whether the activities of such companies are contributing to a greener world or a browner world. And it's difficult to state whether the job you're doing is truly green if you're doing this kind of job. So the direct jobs are not just jobs that are just jobs that also exist in the industrial world for brown infrastructure. And they are like saying that if this bus that I pictured earlier were to be driven by biodiesel, would the driver's job change from becoming brown to green? In a limited sense, the answer is yes, but it would be like a direct job. It's not really changing the world in a very major way. So it doesn't really make the bus driver's job green unless there is self-awareness and a conscious lifestyle change. Indirect jobs are a little bit in between. These are created by new technology or upgrading conventional ways of doing things. This plumber in my front yard is inventing actually, practically, a grey water recycling system for my front lawn, which simply means that the more we use the shower, the more greener our grass gets. So it's a kind of, it's a very interesting invention. He broke through the drawing that I made for this lawn, and he did his own jugaad, which was frankly, I must admit, better than what I did. And he optimized the pipelines and so on. So this is a kind of indirect job. Another kind of indirect job is provided in these examples, the sustainable livelihoods, manufacturing new stuff through distributed franchisees. These are, for example, 3 pictures from Taran and Mant Kendra. They have been manufacturing through franchisees ferrocement roof tiles, more than 12 million stores, so 12 million square feet, which means you replace that many caprel, that many tiles, fired brick tiles with ferrocement tiles, and also provide jobs in the meantime. So for every unit that is set up, you get 6 jobs, and there are about 300 units already set up, which are manufacturing these tiles, or the stabilized soil blocks that have been used in one of our buildings in Bangalore, as well as is being shown being used in a building in Azadpura in Bundelkhand. So these are indirect jobs that actually create new products. This is a new product, and it's or rather a new service, I should say. So very common in Pushta, where I had an office till very recently, is the whole thing of homeless children being pushed by poverty into creating scavenging for waste on fairly dangerous hills of garbage. You've seen these garbage hills in whether it is Pushta in near Akshardham, or whether it is Okhla closer to here. And what you don't see very often are these children, but they are there. And here is on the right an alternative, a version of creating this job by incentivizing residents, in this case of Nizamuddin, to segregate waste at source and then provide them to door-to-door services that have been done more hygienically with better safety standards and so on. Will those kids get these jobs? Unlikely. But in principle, will their children get such jobs? Very likely. And I think there is a social message here as well as an employment message and a management message, that this kind of aggregation is where I hope some of you will choose to work and really create wealth for the nation as well as yourself. The method of creating these indirect jobs is often a strong willingness to have outreach and participation as a method of reskilling. People have the capability, as I've discovered in village after village, as I've worked in more than 300 villages, maybe 400, 500 villages all over India. People have the ability to come together as communities and create their own world. Here are examples from Rajasthan, from tribal Rajasthan, of people basically designing their own schools, which were typically a lot greener than anything we could have imagined sitting in Delhi. They were built faster, cheaper, better, and more durable. So these are things that you can't really hand over to professionals, that there has to be always a participation of people with professionals. Green tech is not about just plugging waste, and it's not just about efficiency and substitution, and this is something I talked about last year as well. So efficiency and substitution are the big two pillars of green. You do more with less, that's efficiency, and you do whatever you are doing with fewer emissions. So for example, you want to use energy, then you use solar energy or wind energy. You want to use water, you use rainfall harvested water. You want to use air, well, or you use recycled water, and so on. So these are efficiency and substitution devices, which are of course known as green. But there are, in my opinion, things which go beyond green, and these are 4 of them that I've thought of. So the first one is sufficiency. How much is enough? And unless we ask that question, we actually don't get properly green solutions or sustainable solutions, as I've called them in this chart. On the right, on top, is equity. Essentially, I cannot imagine that we can have a positive kind of society in which the green stuff is only available to the formal sector, or only available if you have the money to be inside the gate and not outside the gate. So who gets excluded is the big question about equity. Clearly, anything that is green also has to be equitable. Then we come to the bottom right, which is resilience. Insurance agents understand that very well. Something which is a green job must create resilience in the way that the world works. And lastly, there is identity. Does this belong? Is this ours? And I think even though it's difficult to prove that this belongs to the sustainable world, it's essential, because unless you have something that is yours, you will not use it often enough to actually create a different lifestyle. So we have to understand that this belongs to my culture enough for me to actually apportion it and make it part of my lifestyle. So it's the sufficiency, equity, resilience, and identity that I hope to show in what I call the really green jobs, the third category. So clearly, I'll just run through this, I'm running out of time. So clearly, recycling, reproduction, maintenance, and deconstruction, which are all service-oriented industries, are the new infrastructure. And they will be the new infrastructure. So you better start getting used to. We all know recycling is one of the biggest sunrise industries coming up already, but we are not yet aware of reproduction, maintenance, and deconstruction as major industries that we need to be aware of. We are not taught this, and nobody will teach you this, so you simply have to learn it yourselves. And probably a lot of you will learn it on the job. So I'd like to believe, though I'm not, this is not borne out by a lot of thinkers, that working with one's hands will remain an honored part of everyday life. And these really green jobs are created by the demand for new skills and are the best of them all. So, examples from my own work and from those of my colleagues and consultants. So, our own house, we realized early on that unless we upgraded the skills of the masons and went green in the construction, there was no point. So, there's an equity angle to this, and there's a skilling and jobs angle. So, we had the shutterless dome, that's my living room being made on the top picture. that actually brings the productivity levels of the masons to about 3 to 5 times their current productivity level. You can actually afford to pay them 2,500 rupees and still get a cheaper roof and get a steel-less roof. And now these are truly green jobs, because then you are talking about this person, at least in theory, getting enough employment at this very high level of productivity, still getting lower cost for business output. So if I were to be a builder, I could say, well, I can make you these roofs and I can do you the whole project in about, say, 50 rupees a square foot less, and I can still pay my masons 2,500 rupees a day. That is a truly green job. Ferrocement skills. These are other areas that's also material based. You get so much flexibility, economy and emission reduction in ferrocement that it's a great alternative material which is coming into the mainstream very fast. It's coming into the mainstream because it's cement based, it's easy to work with, it's steel based, it's cement based, and so on and so forth. But like the example of the vaults and domes that I showed you, ferrocement working is also highly skilled and will probably continue to remain a highly skilled, high employment generating sector. We made various buildings, including this one in Shanghai, which provided jobs to something like, at peak, some 500 workers of good quality, high skill, working with these bamboo composites, which essentially replace steel with a ratio of cost of 1:4. So we were talking about 4-fold reduction in cost with these bamboo dome in Shanghai, using technology that was frankly imported from Colombia, South America. And yet we were talking about paying these skilled carpenters more than the Chinese standard wage rates that were prevalent at that time. 1.5 times more. It still worked out at 1/4 the cost. Something which is not about construction is the making and maintaining of biological sewage treatment systems instead of outdated city sewers. So on the top left you see the famous picture of the old man who goes 20, 30, 40, 100 times down in the sewers of Calcutta to clean up those sewers with his hand. On the other 3 pictures, you see 3 photographs from various parts of South India, which talk about biological sewage treatment systems, which are decentralized, small scale, community by community, and create completely different and very new jobs, which are really good. Increasing habitat resilience by making green, black, and white roofs, which provide all kinds of new jobs, both in construction and maintenance. Or cooling the building while promoting equity by maintaining green walls. This is a picture from Rahul Malhotra, a friend of mine, who, it's very interesting, the story. He had no time, this office had no time, they wanted to grow building fast, so he made a deal. He said, okay, I'll give you a single glazed office with air conditioning. We will move into it in 9 months or whatever the time was. And after that, you give me a year extra and I will do a facade. So we will take time over the facade. And they said, fine, we will move in, we'll do the facade later. Well, he did the facade later and he made a green facade, literally a green facade. So it is live plants. And when he did this, he made catwalks outside the office. So all these gardeners now wear their best sarees because they know that they might be working outside the cabin of the managing director, and they feel really proud of their jobs. And these are truly green jobs in a way, because there's now in this organization there are about 50% of the jobs in the total HR department are these gardeners, which is maintenance intensive, admittedly, but completely affordable. And completely affordable in terms of the savings in air conditioning that is afforded by these plants. And lastly, well, maybe second last, I'll put in this eco cabs in Bhatinda as an example. Somebody aggregated them with an app. It worked very well. So today, or maybe in some parts of Punjab, many cities now, you can order Uber-like cycle rickshaw, which will come at a negotiated price to your house, take you wherever you wanted to go. And I think this picture is very good because when there were these floods in Bhatinda, and there are more and more urban floods that are coming into our world because of global warming, when there were floods in Bhatinda, no other form of private public transport worked except these cycle rickshaws. So here is this man taking you to the railway station on this rainy day through the flood, and completely driven by the app, which still works under a plastic sheet to protect it from the moisture. but completely workable skill. So this is a truly green job, and for the aggregator, I think a great idea to create very high value for society as a whole. I want to come back to this as my parting shot, that unless we sit with people and talk around, and this is a picture from the 1990s where some of our teams worked in all those villages in Rajasthan, unless we can sit with people and talk around and then embed our thinking into the way their lifestyle is or will change, we are not going to create jobs. We are simply going to create products that will decreate jobs. And I think it's important for all of us as young people, or at least all of you as young people, not me so much, to think about this future, because jobs are where you're going to spend the rest of your lives. Thank you.